joined right now by Laila Cunningham. She's a Reform UK councillor and also co-leads Reform's campaign on law and order. Quite a big job that, Laila. Thanks for joining us.
Thanks for having me, Julia.
Very much appreciate you joining us. Now, let's talk first of all, can we, about these energy bill hikes. The extra 35 quid. Look, it's not, an extra 500 or 1,000 quid as it was a few years back, and we all went, how are we going to pay our bills? But an extra 35 quid is more than a lot of people can afford on top of the 700 plus quid we've already had put on in the last few years. And even Ofgem has said the reason why, in part, is because we are paying for net zero policies that require us to have backup of gas power stations when the wind doesn't blow enough to be turned on at the last minute to provide gas, and to pay wind farms when we don't need the power from them to not produce any wind power at all. I mean, this is insane, isn't it?
I mean, it's absolutely insane. The net zero madness continues. I remember looking at my energy bill and speaking to a friend in France, and her energy bill was so much lower. And I was saying, why is it? And, we mustn't forget, Julia, that it was under the Conservatives that they shut down all our energy storage, thinking that we could always import cheap energy from Russia or from wherever. And the Ukraine war taught us otherwise. And then, they killed off our manufacturing base while British steel plants, car factories, energy-intensive industries are being effectively shut down. They choose to do this. What is the benefit of the net zero policy? And economics and policy is all about allocating rare resources to the right place, right? And money is the rarest of resources, and they're not allocating it to where it can maximise prosperity of Britain. Labour's green agenda effectively puts wind farms before working families.
But this is the thing. I mean, net zero is a policy that was in the manifesto. People sent a message to someone saying, people didn't vote this. Well, actually, people did. The Labour government was elected on net zero policies. They said they'd push it through. So was the last Tory government. So was the one before that, extraordinarily. I mean, because of these policies, it's been around for a while. Reform, as far as I'm aware, is the only party right now that is saying they would completely scrap the whole thing. Do you think that is going to be a big winning, vote-winning policy for your party at the next election?
I think it definitely will, because what we're facing now is more tax increases. They're even threatening to tax our homes. They're threatening to tax anything they can get their hands on. And maybe people voted for net zero, but they definitely didn't vote to give up more of their money to the government. And it's effectively a tax on us, right? It's a backward tax. While families choose between eating and heating, Labour's plan is to just drive bills through the roof and to chase some net zero while China opens a new coal plant every week.
Yeah. And by the way, the wind turbines, and the solar panels are made in the factories in China that are powered by coal. This is the bit that really breaks my soul.
And don't forget, with renewable energy, we cannot store it,
yep.
Right? And we all know that it's very intermittent. So we will be relying. And as long as we don't reduce consumption, which we're not, we cannot reduce manufacturing of our energy because we'll have to rely on foreign countries.
Yeah,
we will scrap the green levies and we'll start real energy production in this country because we believe in abundance. We believe in our country's abundance and relying on our own selves.
Well, indeed, again, frack, baby frack, drill, baby drill, we've been hearing a lot about. Let's talk about your area where, you're involved in the campaign on law and order. We've got actually a court case. Obviously, we can't talk about the details of the court case ongoing at the moment, involving an allegation against someone who is an asylum seeker living in a hotel in Epping who was alleged to have sexually assaulted a child, and obviously pleading not guilty, and that trial is ongoing, so we can't talk about that. But that prompted a lot of protests. We've seen protests around the country over asylum hotels. Today we've got the Home Office and also the hotel chain that owns the Bell Hotel in Epping. They're at the Court of Appeal today, trying to overturn a ruling by the courts that the Bell Hotel was not allowed to house illegal migrants because basically there wasn't a cunning little wheeze on planning permission. They hadn't changed the use of the property. We understand both Reform councillors and Tory councillors are now looking at this in all of their different areas, whether they can challenge asylum hotels. Are you doing that in Westminster? Have you got any asylum hotels in Westminster?
We did have some. We're not doing it. I don't have it in my ward, but I did have a hotel actually in my ward that was being used as a hostel. It wasn't for asylum seekers, and that is a big breach of planning laws and licensing laws. If you have a license to operate as a hotel or planning permission, then you have to seek another planning permission to use it as a hostel, which is what they're doing, and a lot of hotels have not. And that permission comes down to councils. So councils have quite a bit of power to grant this or not. And we'll be interested to see if Labour councils do allow. If I was hotels right now, not that I'm advising them, I'd be trying to apply for that change of use.
Yeah, well, that's it. My local area, I live in a Labour council in Camden. My local area, within 10 minutes walk, there is an asylum hotel that I've found out about. Been there 2 years. I've checked the planning. They've never done a planning application to change the use. They've told me, oh, we're a private hotel. Well, you're either a hotel or you're not a hotel, right? You can't be a private hotel that's not open to a single person from the public. And they've got security doors, security not letting anyone in. So it suggests to me that they are no longer what they say they were. The question is whether can local people also challenge would be an issue, because I'm not sure my local Labour council is going to challenge. But is it a good idea, and as one of our callers, Ashley, just pointed out as well, of getting people out of asylum hotels? Because where are they going to go? Now, if Reform were in charge, they would be in, internment camps effectively, or deported from the country, the Ascension Islands, Rwanda, or wherever. But under the current policy, they're not going to be, they're not going to be deported. They're going to be living in local communities. They're going to be in rental accommodation, often rents that is sky high above what local people can afford because it's on a government contract. They just want to get rid of them. Then they won't be so visible to a local community. We won't know where a lot of these largely undocumented young men are. Is that a good idea especially when they're then also competing with local people for privately rented accommodation?
I mean, it's quite possibly the worst idea, and it's a massive failure of safeguarding on behalf of our government. And the fact that they don't have anywhere else to put them shows that there's been no planning. Julia, this isn't a new issue. And now we're hearing that they might want to fast track their stay simply because they're from countries which historically have high asylum grant rates. And let's look at these countries. These include people from Afghanistan, Eritrea, Sudan, all countries that we know from court data are of males that have been disproportionately involved in sexual violence and safeguarding failure. And the government's answer is, no, not better vetting. Apparently they said they're going to do intense checks. What exactly are they going to check when they've thrown their passport and all their documents in the sea? And it's not faster removals, no. And it's definitely not protecting women and girls. It's actually, to exactly like you say, put them above British people on the waiting list and put them into housing paid for by the taxpayer. It is so galling.
Oh. We're told, but they can work if these people under this Refugee Council proposal, that they'll be able to work. I mean, presumably they're all going to be highly paid doctors and engineers, and then they'll be paying their own rent.
I mean, we've seen what reliance on cheap foreign labour does to our country. We have massive problems with legal and illegal migration, the Boris wave. And we know that a low-skilled migrant will cost the average taxpayer £400,000 over their lifetime. And again, they're going to move these men out of hotels into private homes faster with public money. There's no way that whatever job they get is not going to pay their way. They are going to be accessing taxpayer money. And so basically, they're rewarding the crossings even more.
Well, again, if people are allowed to work, then there'd be even more of an incentive to come. It's almost like these people are not paying attention to the actual facts, but there we are. Let's talk about the facts changing in terms of reforms policy. I've certainly, the weekend when I saw the interview that Nigel Farage did at the Times, laying out what he was going to announce on Tuesday, when he actually announced it, cheering on, absolutely on the mark on pretty much every single aspect of reforms policy in terms of tackling the invasion of illegal migrants to this country and how to tackle it. But he's already been accused of backtracking, right? Yesterday saying, well, actually, when asked on Tuesday, he was asked, will you also be detaining and deporting women and children? He said yes, though there were some difficulties, he said, with unaccompanied children. Yesterday, he said, well, they wouldn't be a priority. We wouldn't be deporting women and children in our first 5 years. Is that a backtrack? Is that a U-turn? And was that policy not thought through?
No, it's not a U-turn, because about massive proportion, and I don't want to name a number that I'm not sure of, but I think I heard somewhere over 90% are men. And that's what people are worried about. People are not worried about the few children or the few women that come through. It's the men. And as Zia said in the press conference, our aim is to deport them as soon as possible. And once we do that, once you know that if you cross here illegally, you will be deported, they'll stop coming, because effectively, Julia, Labour and Conservatives have decriminalised entering our country illegally. You and I wouldn't dream of rocking up to Heathrow Airport without a passport and saying, you know what, I don't have my passport. Do you mind putting me up in a hotel for a few months because actually I've lost my credit card. Can you sort me out, please?
Yeah, good luck with that.
People doing that. And while you're at it, give me some pocket money. We wouldn't dream of doing that, but that's effectively what's happening. So, yeah, there might be a few children, and that definitely is not the priority right now, and I don't think it's the British people's priority.
OK, very interesting. Thank you. Laila Cunningham, Reform UK Councillor in Westminster Council. Thank you for joining us.